My name is Maria Clayton, and I am a senior manager at M&P. I am delighted to have the opportunity to address you for a few moments prior to today's webinar. M&P is a leading national accounting, tax, and business consulting firm. We proudly serve the responsive needs of our clients in the public, private, and non-for-profit sectors, and we are committed to helping our clients, teammates, and community adapt to evolving landscape. We are proud to support organizations like the Chamber of Commerce and a partnership that aligns with business spirit and amplifies our values of leadership, excellence, commitment to enhancing our communities of where we work and live. Thank you for taking part in this session, and I look forward to connecting with you at a future Chamber event.
So today we're going to talk about vampires and saints. And you're probably thinking, what does that have to do with my workplace? Well, the fact is that in your workplace, you might actually have some, what I call cultural vampires and some saints. And these are individuals that we want to manage carefully in our organizations, and also make sure that we can understand how they can contribute both positively and negatively to your culture. So I've been in the HR field for over 40 years, and I've seen just about everything from vampires to love triangles to voodoo, and all range of exciting, wonderful things in business. And so my experience has led me to put this presentation together because I want to be able to help organizations to be able to create great working environments where people can be productive and your business can grow. So our discussion today is going to focus on several topics. We're going to talk about culture and its implications, what constitutes a culture, how do you tell if your culture is not doing well, and then we'll spend some time talking about vampires and saints and how you take action on all this. So culture is a complex mix. It's defined by a number of elements, including your people, who you bring into the organization. It's about the demonstrated values and accepted behaviors. So as much as we have charts on the wall that say this is our mission and values, it's what we demonstrate in terms of day-to-day activities, and it's how we accept behaviors. So if we tolerate somebody not being a team player, that becomes an accepted part of our culture. So we want to make sure we're mindful of what we accept in terms of our daily activities. We also want to look a little bit about the environment. The environment you create is very important for your staff, and there are many components to that. We'll also talk about some of your policies and practices, how you design jobs, and also working conditions and architecture. So those are many of the elements of culture. So why is culture important? Well, it comes down to thinking about what do you need from your people. And basically, you need three things from your people. You need them to be productive. In other words, they're contributing through their work to your business. You want them to be committed. You want them to say good things about your organization. You want them to go the extra mile in terms of their work for you. And you also want them to be passionate. Ideally, you want them to be excited about coming to work. You want them to be thrilled when you have a new client or a new product and so on. So if you can achieve all those three things, you're going to have an engaged workforce. And that's really critical. And I'll talk to you why. And it really makes difference in terms of dollars and cents. So first of all, if you have a company with low engagement, your operating income is going to be at about a third less than if you had a highly engaged workforce. So again, operating income is directly affected by the level of engagement of staff. Again, if it's fairly logical. If they're contributing well, they're gonna create more profits for you. Similarly, companies with an engaged force also grow faster. So they grow 20% faster if you have a highly engaged workforce. Again, because you're harnessing those contributions. We also have found out through research that engaged companies grow profits 3 times faster there than their competitors. And probably what's most important is that highly engaged employees are 87% less likely to leave the organization. So that's an amazing figure because, as you know, as we try to recruit in this war for talent, we want to make sure that we can keep our good people. And again, if you can minimize your turnover, that's huge because the cost of turnover is actually 3 times the annual salary. By the time you lose someone, you lose their productivity, then you have to invest the time in hiring, recruiting, and staffing, and then building that person to competency. Your cost could be 3 times the annual salary. So again, if we can have great employees who are engaged, you're going to reduce that turnover. So one of the key elements of culture that most people think about is the vision and mission statements. And here we want to make sure that what's happening in the workforce is not deceptive. We want to make sure that the words we're saying are true. We want to make sure that we're not deceiving people by those statements. So I encourage organizations to think very carefully about what they put on there and also make sure you find time to try and measure that. So if we say we're community minded, do our employees agree with that? And so you want to make sure that those mission statements really are powerful and impactful, but more importantly, real, because we don't want to have smoke and mirrors here. So let's talk about some of the elements of culture. So some of the components are, first of all, your reward and measurement systems. So for example, if you have a productivity bonus for staff, people are going to respond to that. If you have special awards for staff, they're going to respond to that. So think about the type of reward systems you have in place and make sure that they are reflecting your culture. If you have a competitive environment, you may have some different type of standards for people. Um, you also want to think about how do you praise and forgive people. So do you praise people when they get a new customer? Do you praise people for customer support? Um, and that's important to understand because as you praise people, you will get more and more of those behaviors. You also want to understand when do you need to ask for forgiveness. One of my clients is an organization that believes that honest mistakes are learning opportunities. And so they will forgive people for that. But saying that statement is very critical for them because it allows people to continue to move ahead with their work and also to not be fearful about repercussion if they make an honest error. You also want to think about does your organization have any entitlements or not? And in the slightly older days, people's entitlements might have been a big corner office or a big desk or more prestige stuff. A lot of that has gone by the wayside now. Um, Years ago, people would have designated parking spots and so on. And again, I think some of those things have largely disappeared from the workplace, but you want to make sure that whatever entitlements you have are acknowledged, and you want to make sure they're adding value to the organization. Your culture is also defined very much by your physical work environment and even lighting. And so the moment you walk into an office or a reception area, you get a sense of what that organization is like. So again, be conscious of that, and uh, and also think very clearly, very carefully about lighting. Um, Many of there was the Hawthorne studies years ago with Ford Motor Company where they increased the lighting in a particular area, and that had a beneficial impact on the staff because of the attention that was being paid. But again, think about things like lighting, working conditions, those make a difference. And certainly thinking about your office layout, colors, and also just the general cleanliness of the environment. One of my companies was a very successful manufacturing organization, and the staff room was really quite unpleasant. It hadn't been painted for years, and so that was demoralizing for staff. They worked the shift, they go into this miserable looking room, and so one of the things we did was we repainted and redesigned that lunchroom, made a huge impact on people. So again, that's a very visible way to increase engagement and let people know that you care about them. Some organizations consider bringing pets into the organization or other ways to increase the value of the work environment. That's something that can be considered. Other organizations will arrange for games and activities or social interactions. So think about those ways to engage people with your culture. And again, it could be formal or informal programs, but it's important to build that social interaction because ultimately people want to come to work not just for the work itself, but for the way they feel about the work and what's the emotional connection there. So those are important things to consider as you think about your culture as a whole. The other thing that's really important is really what I call corporate memory and mythology. And so that's really about the stories that you tell about the work and the company and so on. And I recall when I worked for a pharmaceutical company during the large um, power failure a few years ago. Basically, that was when we had all the power went out in Ontario for about 3 days, and at the time we had a warehouse full of vaccines which needed to be refrigerated. The refrigeration units all shut down, and we were faced with the loss of millions of dollars of life-saving vaccines. And one of our staff is very resourceful. He phoned his buddies who had some refrigerated trucks. They brought the trucks in, they loaded the vaccines there. He actually saved lives and saved millions of dollars. And so we recognized him for that work, but we also told that story to our staff. And again, finding a specific story to tell to staff is very powerful because it gives them a clear picture of what it takes to be successful in this organization and what we value. And so whether it's a customer service story or somebody being ingenious or creative, those are important things to share in the environment. And you can share those for your orientation program, or you can also share and promote those at town halls because those are the most powerful way to demonstrate the values in your culture. At the same time, you may be wondering, well, is my culture in trouble? Do I have a weak culture? So here are some of the things you may think about as you look at weak culture. The first obvious symptom is turnover. Do you have a high level of turnover? And also understanding where is the turnover happening? Is the turnover happening, with people who've been there less than 3 months, or is it less than a year? So making sure you understand how turnover is happening is really important, and also understanding if it's above the average. So typically, an average organization is going to have turnover of 3 to 5%. So if you're over that, you want to think about that. Obviously, if you're not being profitable, there may be some elements of the culture that's contributing to that. If you have people who are not engaged and not producing, if your engagement, as we talked about, is low, that's going to be a challenge. And again, that will contribute to a weak culture. Also, another symptom is if you have excessive absenteeism. It may be that people are not enjoying working with the supervisors. They may not be enjoying the work or the working conditions. So you want to manage absenteeism, but also understand the root causes for it. And certainly, weaker and different relationships are often a sign of a weak culture, particularly if you have issues with the supervisors. Again, the supervisors, the managers are the key link between the company and the employees. So you want to make sure that those relationships are strong and profitable. So we're going to come back to our original discussion point around vampires. So as I say, you may not think you have vampires in your organization, and I hope that you don't. But sometimes we do have them, and I've certainly seen many over the years. And cultural vampires are not always obvious. They can be wonderful people, and they smile and they talk to the manager, but then the manager leaves the room and suddenly they're bad mouthing the company or criticizing, or they're fermenting rumors, gossip, and so on. And so the challenge with these vampires is that unfortunately they really do erode the culture and they drain the energy from your good people. And as they continue to grow in the organization and spread misinformation, it does have an impact on people's performance. And so you want to be able to manage those vampires very, very carefully. And if you think back on your career, you may have met one or two in your careers. The question is, were they well managed? On the other hand, you're going to have what I call cultural saints. And these are the people you wish you had a million of them. They're the people that embody the values. They work overtime. They're great to be with. They support their colleagues and they deliver results. And also, people respect and look up to them. Now, the challenge we have in the organizations, if you have too many vampires, eventually your saints become discouraged. And so they may leave the organization. They may not want to work there, or they may become disenchanted as well. So you want to make sure that you're managing to keep your saints engaged by looking after the quote vampires. So, what are some of the things you can do to help with this? So first of all, you want to be able to strengthen your culture. And there's a number of ways you can do that. You can do that either formally or informally. Informally is basically just connecting with staff, making sure you're having good conversations with them about things that are real and valuable. You may want to consider more formal resources. So in other words, doing an employee survey, you could do focus groups. We used to do something called fireside chats, where we just had a casual lunch with the president every quarter with a few employees, just to have a discussion about things. And then finally, you may want to do exit surveys. So again, it's understanding what's happening in the environment, and there are many ways to do that, depending on how large your organization is. But certainly, continuing to just talk to people, connecting with them is number one. So finally, in terms of taking action, some of the things you may want to do is, first of all, identify if there are any quick wins. As I say, I mentioned about the cafeteria, the lunchroom being painted. That was a quick win for an organization. Another quick win I had years ago was I went in to see the night shift at a particular plant, and they said, "Frank, the coffee is really terrible." So we fixed the coffee. So that was a quick win, but certainly helped the engagement. So again, thinking about there may be some quick wins you can do. The second point is making sure you vanish your vampires. So if you have individuals that are not contributing to the culture, that are taking away energy from your good people, make sure that you manage those, either coach them or have them leave the organization. It's tough to do that, but at the end of it, I call it the bulletin board test when they say that someone has left the organization and it goes on the bulletin board and people say, yes, that's right. That means you've done the right thing. The third thing is you want to make sure that your leaders are visible. So regardless of whether you're working hybrid or working in plant, you want to make sure your leaders are always visible, accessible, because if they're not, people will create stories about it. And again, we want to have that connection with people. And then finally, you want to praise the saints. So if you have great people working for your organization, make sure they know it. Make sure that others understand what they bring to the party so that you can use that experience to increase other productivity. So at this point, I just want to thank you for listening and welcome any questions that you may have. Feel free to contact me by email or phone, and have a great day, and may the saints be with you. Thank you very much.